Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from La Token. Today is Monday. So basically, I'm all like really geared up to start my week with a very power-packed panel, speakers, and topic. So I haven't actually moderated or hosted this topic in my previous panel. So I'm very excited to start my week on a very high note. And I have got really diverse speakers as well. I mean, obviously, we have some regular speaker and also some new speakers. Before I jump into the topic, I just want to introduce myself and introduce VCTV. So my name is Sonny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of La Token. I'm based here in Singapore. So La Token has been hosting VCTV, which is the Venture Capital TV, since February 2020 this year. In light of COVID-19, where we're not able to travel and host our blockchain economic forum, which was the events that we used to host to connect investors and startups. So that's when we decided to move the format online. So the goal and the objective of VCTV as a platform remains the same. We are connecting investors who are yourselves, Clara, Gary, and Irina, with the startup community that we have in our network. Because startups are the ones who can drive the economy forward in times of crisis. And we've seen that. But they need help. They need help with money, funding, sort of guidance, advice, mentorship, scaling up, and everything else that comes with investment, as we all know. So that's the whole idea about hosting these events every day, because we might think because of the lockdown or the pandemic, things have slowed down. Yes, they have to some extent, but still we have to keep pace with the changing times because things are moving fast. And in 2 months' time, we're in 2021, and I never know what the world looks like in 2021. I mean, for me, at least for me. So great. That's enough about me. Today's topic is investments in deep tech technologies and space tech as well. That's very interesting. I haven't discussed much into space tech or deep tech technologies in our panel. We have touched upon many different topics, but not specifically on this. So I'm very excited to have the kind of range of speakers today. We have a new speaker who is representing a company in Singapore who are investing into deep tech technologies and mostly working with the government, Singapore government. So I'd like to start with Clara, who is here from Singapore today. Hi, Clara. Welcome to VCTV. How are you
Thanks,
today?
Sonny. Hi. Great. I'm great. Yes, just bring a very exciting start to the week, and really, really excited to join this panel for the first time.
Excellent. I'm really excited to have you as well. So how was your weekend? Let's start with that. How was your weekend, Clara? How did it go?
Well, it's Monday 8 p.m. here, so I guess I'll start with the past day, how I've been doing, if that's fine with you.
Okay.
So I did a site visit actually today to a health tech startup, basically to understand their manufacturing process, and they are basically producing health tech products for testing, COVID testing, basically. So it's super interesting and very exciting.
We're gonna know more about that. But can you tell us which company you represent? Xnote.
Well, of course, yes. Xnote, we are an accelerator that provides market access for companies, startups around the world to enter China. And also we work with different governments, Chinese government and the European government to help startups enter Singapore as well. So mainly cross-border access. Yeah.
Wow, that's excellent. Good to know as well. Working with the Chinese and the European government to enter Singapore. Wow, welcome to VCTV, Clara. I'm really looking forward to hear a lot of insights from you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. So next we have the crypto superwoman, Irina. Hi, Irina. Welcome back. How are you? How was your weekend?
Really great. Thank you. I have a family visiting here in Texas from Utah, so it's really, really exciting. It's hot in Texas, which we love. Great weekend.
Great.
It's
Welcome back. And this is my Monday panel of VCTV. For those who may not know Irina, please can you help introduce yourself so that people get excited
no,
about it.
yes, pleasure. My name is Irina Litchfield. Many know me as Crypto Superwoman. I'm president of Lumeria. Lumeria is where capital meets innovation. Basically, any company that has proven product market fit and is looking now for money to scale. We work with those companies. I'm founder of Blockchain Cube. You can hear the coffee on my background, by the way. I am at the ranch in my RV, so the noises might be a little bit different. I'm also founder of Blockchain Cube, which is a blockchain integration company. I'm advisor for Space Fund, and which is related to the topic today, Pro-Chain Capital, and founding advisor of a global securities exchange. And
how does it feel like to have coffee in the space? I mean, you're literally in the middle of the space.
I mean, we will have, right, when we settle, when we have one of these things, will we have coffee? I hope so. We'll probably have things that ground us back to the planet.
Excellent. Thank you, Irina. Thanks for that quick introduction. Last but not least, Gary. Welcome back, Gary. How are you? How was your weekend? How are things?
Good. I just, I was over in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm actually not in Silicon Valley right now. I'm at my house in Palm Beach in Florida. But I went over to, I actually bought the latest e-bike, the most sophisticated e-bike. It was out for 1 week and it was sold out for 2021. It is, anyhow, I went over and picked it up on the Gulf of Mexico, and I took my dog swimming in the Gulf, my Basset Hound. She loves to swim, so we took her to the dog beach, and we took her swimming, and we just enjoyed ourselves. I wrote an article on AI and quantum computing, and I wrote another article on living to 150, recent advances in health tech. So I did that also, and I had fun and put the roof back on the car and, just enjoyed life a bit.
I'm so jealous, Gary. Honestly, I am unable to do any of that.
Well, come on over.
I love to. Once the flights are open and I just go Florida.
Exactly. It's beautiful. It's like 300 days a year. It's blue skies. Normally I'm in Silicon Valley. I actually haven't been back for 6 months.
Right.
My car's in the garage out there. And I said, if I want to get stuck in a place, where would I want to be stuck? This is it.
Wow. Excellent. You made a right choice. Great.
Yeah. So far, so good. So anyhow, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 15, now 16 companies actually. And I've been doing entrepreneurship for 30 years. I started the first accelerator in Russia, and I started the #1 private corporate accelerator, GVA. And I just started a pre-accelerator called GSD Labs. I work in artificial intelligence. I've written over 80 articles in the last year in AI. And now I'm writing it between 1 and 3 every week about artificial intelligence because I just love it. It is the way our world is going to change. And with all the data around us, we need to have some way to be able to make sense of it. And it's critically important today. And that's just what I like and I'm passionate about. So, I lived in Russia 14 years, so I know a little bit about Russia. I was a top professor at the business school over there and working on my accelerator. So, like a lot of different things. I'm like a curious child.
Oh, great. We should all be like that, actually, Gary. Thanks for that. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, guys, we're all set with the introduction, and I'm really excited to hear a lot of insights, especially AI, blockchain, quantum computing, space tech, a lot of things today for the session tonight. I'd like to start with Clara. Clara, I just don't want to be very specific with my question. I'd like to know, can you give us a run through, a background about what's happening in the deep tech space, and what has been your contributions and what are you seeing the recent trends in Asia or Singapore?
That's a very big question. So I guess, Yeah, I guess what I'll start off with is as you know, Singapore deep tech investments are very much driven by the government, and unlike other more mature ecosystems like in the US, here is very much driven by the government because, as you know, deep tech startups basically they need a longer roadmap for development and commercialization. So it's kind of discouraging the private sector VCs, but of course that has changed in the recent years because of a lot of these activities that the government is doing. So just a very quick overview on the activities that the government is focusing on. So the government has launched a few programs, mainly under the Startup SG umbrella. So it will be things like equity, and then to encourage first-time founders to come in to found deep tech startups, and providing them basically with capital, with access to technologies, and basically a lot of support. So it's not just funds that we are investing in, but these co-investment funds are also attracting private sector investment. So starting from the different tiers of investment to attract private sector investors to come in on the one-to-one funding, or up to I think the ratio now is 7-3 to attract private sector investments. And that has actually changed a lot of the market in the last few years. So just looking back 3 years, right? The investment has driven in Singapore from around $2 billion all the way to $8 billion in 2009. So just in the past 3 years alone. During the same period, we also have an increase of say investment into advanced manufacturing, urban solutions, sustainability, health tech, biomedical sciences. I think these are the key deep tech industries we are looking at. Yeah. So do you have any questions on that before I move on?
Yeah, that's great for an opening remarks to give a perspective what's happening in the ecosystem in Singapore. I would come back to you with more specific questions. Thank you for that, Clara. So next I have Irina. Irina, let's start with space tech and deep tech. So please share your insights, what's happening in the space.
A lot is happening. Space is hot, super, super hot right now. I mean, I don't know how it is in the world, all over the world right now, because I've been in America for the last 7 months without traveling, but the way I understand it is that it's hot everywhere. Actually, space is the most relatable asset class everywhere in the world. So, however, it is not an established asset class, which is a completely different and separate topic. But a lot is happening in the space industry. Obviously, Elon Musk is one of the bigger drivers behind it. However, Space Force is doing a lot of wonderful things. And when we look at our reality and the technology that we have right now, we must look back to the push of going to the moon and seeing the development in a space. And so we're kind of experiencing the similar era right now. A lot of technological improvement are happening all over, and it is pushing the boundaries of our reality. And those innovations that are being implemented right now are going to change the way we live our lives here on our planet. And I think that's one of the important key to remember, that when we think about space, when we think about space industry, it is not necessarily all about us going out there, but it really is about improving our lives here on our planet. Whether it is for, whether we think of Elon Musk or we think of Jeff Bezos, they both are driven by one thing: to save our planet. They do want to save our planet in different ways. They have different plans with the space, but nonetheless, it is our planet that's treasure to us. And so some of the bigger things that we're seeing is the shift that's basically space companies and specifically startups. Now, startups in the space industry is very new, because before, space was only available for governments, right? So you couldn't go and start a space company and say, I'm going to go to the moon and be able to do it. Now, we have space is now open to free enterprise for about 10 years. And just as a side note, Rick Tomlinson, founder of Space Fund, is a driving force behind kind of the regulation that was, brought to it. So he's been in the industry for over 30 years. And really driving that regulation. But in the last 10 years, we now have startups, right? We have seed, A round, B round, C round companies. And up until beginning of this year, most of these companies were concentrating on how do they create solutions in space, right? So let's take up pods. So one of those over there, just a smaller size, right? So basically we have these pods that can feed family of four sustainably or regeneratively for long period of time. And that was built for moon, right? So this company never even thought or considered to provide solutions here on the planet. It just was kind of, this is what we're going to do on the moon. But since recent changes happen and people started thinking about, how do I grow my own food and how do I stay away from people and all that, they actually pivoted their model to providing, instead of doing B2B, they're going B2C. And so we see a lot of that in the space industry. So B2C model is pivot. A lot of companies are pivoting and providing that. Now, of course, low orbit is very popular right now. LEO is kind of a big push right now. Kind of how do we increase our communications is a big question. Obviously, the laser communications is a big kind of a advancement that we're looking for, and of course security. Security is one of the biggest questions that we have right now when it comes to space.
Right. Wow, great. Awesome insights, Irina. So yeah, we got 3 speakers, got enough time. I'm going to come back to you, more questions. Thank you for that start. Gary, let's talk AI, deep tech, unless
Sure.
you would like to start on space. So I think the deep tech is obviously quite a promising space, but also the startups in the space face many challenges because of in terms of capital. In deep tech, building a product requires a lot of time due to research for which it needs capital. So what do you think are how can the startups who are really looking to build something in the space can be helped either with the private investors, venture, accelerator, or maybe the government? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Deep tech, or are you talking about space tech? Just in deep tech, or
just in deep tech to start with?
Yeah, okay. Let me just add on to what Irina said, because I'm going to paint a picture for you. So
Absolutely.
if you look at it today in space, so I had recently, last week, had a call with one of the NASA astronauts who's a PhD in quantum physics. And so I've had several discussions, and most people don't realize. So if you say, how many Earth-like planets are there in the Milky Way galaxy? Earth-like means they're in the Goldilocks zone. That means close to a star that they could have a habitable life. There are about 6 billion just in the Milky Way galaxy, right? And then how many galaxies are estimated in the universe based on Hubble and the Kepler project? And now it's 200 trillion. Trillion.
Wow.
Trillion. So you figure if you just take a model like ours, there's 6 billion per galaxy. There are 200 trillion galaxies within the universe. Think about what the opportunities are and what's out there. And as Stephen Hawking said, that imagine a civilization is 100 million years ahead of us. right? What would that be like? So this is just, and he said something fascinating to me, Sonny. He said, when you're in space
Yeah.
and you're looking down at the Earth, you
Yeah.
understand how small we are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, this is a great frontier. Now, I want to talk about artificial intelligence. If we're going to go to Mars, there's all
Mhm.
kind of issues. So if you're taking a flight that takes 6 months or a year, even if you use the moon as a base, you've got to have artificial intelligence. Think about analyzing all the data around you, all the asteroids, all the potential issues, things that could hit your ship while you're flying and kill you. So imagine all the zettabytes of data that you've got to analyze, and then imagine communications being relayed from Earth to the moon and the moon out. So AI is going to play a critical role. The other thing is, like the European Space Agency has developed an intelligent assistant to be able to essentially talk to you while you're flying to keep you company, right? And to monitor your health. So kind of like Hal. So these technologies are there. And in terms of space, so deep tech, I'm just finishing my article on AI and quantum computing. So quantum computers, so to give you a scope of how fast they are, a quantum computer is 100 million times faster, can be up to 100 million times faster than a typical conventional computer today. 100 million.
Wow.
So think about what that possibilities that opens up for us, good and bad. So Google's got so their first uh, computer was 100 million times faster. So with all the data, now let's paint a picture of how much data that we each have. So each one of us here on this show have about 300,000 items within your own personal cloud. Email, files, folders, Dropbox, WeChat, Google Drive, Slack, Messenger, Telegram. You can have 20 some data sources. And how many times every week do you say, somebody says, "Did you get my email?" And you say, "I don't remember seeing it." Well, because you get hundreds of emails.
Right.
We are in a bad situation. We're inundated with data. This flat data coming at us is killing us. What have I said to you, Sonny? Remember the PowerPoint presentation I sent to you 3 months ago? And I sent it in Facebook Messenger because you use it, right? Or LinkedIn. How in the world would you know where it is? The first thing, you're going to check your email.
Right.
And then you have to write the exact words. It's got PowerPoint presentation, Gary. Well, that is inundated. That is dead. If we don't do something to be able to organize better, using not smart, but intelligent artificial intelligence, which means unsupervised. So paint the picture, 300,000 items today. That number doubles every year. In 5 years, you will have 10 million items within your own personal cloud. How in the world? Think about today. I don't care. I've talked to CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world, and they tell me, I said, "How did you deal with your data, your email?" He said, "It's very simple. 2 years ago, I said, if an email is older than 2 years, I'm going to delete it." I said, "Okay." And he said, a year ago, this is a real conversation. A year ago, I said, "If it's older than a year, I'm going to delete it." And then I said, "Okay." And he said, 6 months ago, I even said, "If it's older than 6 months, I don't need it." And I said, "But what if it's something important, like some document?" He said, "If it's that important, they'll send it again." Now, this is a CEO of one of the largest companies in the world. So we are in a state of Alvin Toffler said of infobesity. We need to be able to use artificial intelligence, not smart, but intelligent, to be able to help us decipher all the data. We're getting thrown at it from our cars. We're getting thrown at it from our devices. In fact, next week, Samir Sharma, the top person in Intel, the executive that handles IoT and smart cities, is going to be on my show. And we're talking exactly that about infobesity. We are in a stage where we need to have these tools, these AI tools, and these quantum computers. Now, let's extract it out. So in our own personal universe, in 5 years, 10 million items. What happens if you're a city? How many items do you think? And think how dumb cities are. When you go to a traffic light, they only are timed, right? Okay, a car pulls up, a sensor says, a car is here. It doesn't look at traffic flow. It's not intelligent. They're not intelligent. It's crazy. So why don't you put in a city to be able to reduce, fuel consumption, intelligent systems? We don't do it. It's insane. So we are in a state, there's so many zettabytes of data. I just read there's so much data that's created. If we took a CD and stacked it end to end, so today it would go to the back and forth to the moon 23 times.
Wow. That's a
Think
lot of
about it. It's crazy.
crazy.
So this is a state. So these technologies, these deep tech technologies. Last week I was on the phone with one of the consortium of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world talking about AI and drug discovery and modeling. That's our future. COVID's really pushed us because we've had to come up with a cure for COVID very, very quickly. And having these technologies that can do these models very, very fast is critically important. So now we're in a different stage. This digital transformation over the last 8 months has put us in an entirely different state. And these deep tech technologies, so there's different types of AI, right? Most people, by the way, there's a lot of BS. They say, oh, it's artificial intelligence. It's not, it's algorithmic math. But AI, when you have AI at the very highest level, so I just wrote a paper in Forbes about emotion AI. This is where you have compassion. So people say, oh, it's the nasty AI. You want semi-supervised where you tell it to do something some of the time. I'm simplifying it. Unsupervised where it's making some of the own decisions, right? So it's trying to help you. It's truly an intelligent assistant. And then AI, emotion AI that has compassion and things built into it to make it more human-like.
Totally, totally. So how can the startups get benefited? Because I think deep tech requires a lot of research and a lot of initial capital, if I'm correct. So, I mean, how do they reach out to investors? And what are some of the best practices they should be
I'm in
following?
a situation. So a lot of the places where some of this incredible talent is out are places like Russia, the Ukraine, Belarus, Israel,
Mm,
Singapore has some. So this is like I call, the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, right? I'm from a little town in Pennsylvania, grew up in the side of a mountain, 1,000 people in our village, literally. I keep things real simple. If you're going to go fishing, Sonny, you go where the fish are, right? You don't go to the lake where there aren't fish. So you go to places where you find those kind of talent. So if it was me, if I had an idea and I would be in Singapore or China or the UK or wherever, I would go to places where those resources are, where people can build it. You want to go where people are the best at building it. Find somebody you can partner with that has great expertise and can help you build whatever you want. So if it's an AI model. The other thing, remember, AI models, and again, this is another one of my papers in Forbes recently, my articles, is transportable models. The same model that I use in manufacturing can be used in healthcare. The difference are how big the training sets are. But the same exact model. So people don't realize it's like taking an engine from one part to another. So these are transportable models. And if a startup wants to get involved, well, let's figure out, first of all, there's a lot of the startups are calling it AI and it's not AI, right? It's a light version of algorithmic math. So figure out what your problem is and how truly you're going to be able to solve it. Then I would find teams that can work with you to help solve that problem. So if you're in sales and marketing, find technical co-founders that are located. I mean, that's what we do, right? With GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, we look for talent. We actually, help create those companies. So we look for the talent on one side and we look for a problem, and are people willing to spend money to be able to solve it, right? And are the customers willing to grab it out of your hands, right? The technology, and pay you money. It's one thing of grabbing it, but are they going to willing to give you money in exchange for what you have?
that's very important.
Yeah. So do your customer development and look at the opportunities over the last 8 months, the opportunities with this digital transformation. So we're on Zoom. What's the next stage? The next stage is VR, all the kind of things associated. So holographic image, imagine sitting in a Zoom meeting like this, but now we're in the middle of an auditorium and we're on stage, right? Virtually. Like literally you can see yourselves on stage. Those are the kind of things that are coming. Look for problems, look for the future of where things are going to go. And again, people want to get closer. We need to use artificial intelligence, things like, and VR and things like healthcare, right? Being able to have robot, cobots. If you're doing surgery, imagine how precise being able to use a laser if it's a cobot. And then being able to literally target the cancer, right? If you're doing drug delivery systems, target exactly the cancer, not the area around it, which, when you have cancer, if you take that area around it, that's why people have a lot of challenges, because you're taking a tiny piece, but 90% of it's things that don't need to be taken out. So precise drug delivery, precise surgery, being able to have nanobots that go inside your body that can cleanse the cholesterol out and clean you out on their own, right? Unsupervised, be able to clean it. Now, as Irina said, there are security challenges. So the next level, I wrote an article with the CSO of Apple, the former chief security officer of Apple in 2017. I talked about it then. But there are challenges we're going to have to face, because if you have those kind of robots in you, last thing is you want is the bad guys or bad girls to go in there and start controlling the robots inside your body, right? Or your car. Well, just think of these driverless cars. All of a sudden you're driving along and you got some hacker that starts controlling your cars and starts sending them to the river, So
Gary, I like the way you say bad guys or bad girls.
well, after the conversations with Irina earlier, brought it up.
Yeah, security. Yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to hear that from Irina as well shortly. Thank you, Gary, for that
Sure.
big insight, giving a big picture of the sector itself. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So moving very swiftly to Singapore now, as Gary said, Clara, a lot of talent in Singapore, and we agree with there's a lot of talent in Singapore and a lot of support from the government itself. Can you give us some examples of some successful use cases from a startup that you've seen in the recent times during the pandemic that you can share what's happened, with the audience from US and our global audience, our speakers? Sorry.
Absolutely, sure. Thanks, Sonny. And also to Gary's point, I think Singapore, we are a growing ecosystem, unlike the US, which is so far ahead. So I work mainly with the Singapore ecosystem and our HQ in China, in Shanghai. So like China is far ahead of anyone in terms of the number of patents they can produce every year. Since 2019, they've become like the top country in terms of patent, but they're still far behind the US in terms of developing deep tech ventures. And the US has a very strong private ecosystem that I think we are struggling to catch up as well. Although there has been some inroads in Singapore, but we have to be very realistic. Like what Irina was talking about, space tech. I think in Singapore's perspective, we have to also consider size. So to give an example, the Kennedy Space Center, right, where missions blast off, basically it takes up about 80% of the geography of Singapore. So no, we don't have the space, we don't have the capability, but what we can do in the area of deep tech is really things like—
I got the space for space, right?
Yes. We have been trying though, like reclaiming a bit of land every year, but no, we'll not get there. It's too far. Yeah, so we don't have space, but we can do other things about space. For instance, space-based laser communications. That's one area that we have tried, and the government has been, very strongly supporting this area of deep tech as well. So yeah, I think maybe I can bring up a few examples where the government has been very supportive right from the beginning, which has proven really successful. So one area is in this space tech startup, Celestial. So they are a space-based laser communication startup where they are developing a constellation of small satellites in low Earth orbit. So developing basically ultra high speed backbone of network connectivity. So it has just raised 9.6 billion in Series A financing round, led by the government and a few private sector investors. So our Series A round, 9.6 million US dollars, seems very little compared with large economies like the US. But I also have to remind you, because the size of our economy here is a lot smaller. So yeah, but this is actually a very big thing for us. And so space tech is one. Another example, health tech has been really big given the COVID situation for us, and being in close proximity to China. For us, COVID has started since January, since end of January actually. So while we didn't have like the lockdowns, which a lot of developed economies have, we do have soft lockdowns called the circuit breaker, where we work from home, but we can still go out to buy groceries and go out to exercise. So it's kind of a soft lockdown. Of course, that has an impact on the economy as well. And a lot of deep tech startups, those in the healthcare space, the health tech space, has pivoted to capitalize on this also because they need to. Yeah, so another example, I went for a site visit today. Basically, this genomic medicine startup, Lucence, they just closed a Series A round last year. And this year, because of COVID, they basically pivot to sample testing kit, to producing sample testing kit. So they don't actually do COVID tests, but they basically provide a test kit which promises sample integrity. So proper storage and transporting conditions need to ensure samples remain viable. But in this case, they have a formula of transporting medium that keeps the samples at room temperature for up to a week without the need for chilling. So yeah, so we've seen these pivots that has been proven quite successful during this period. But the ability to pivot also is supported largely by the government.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in general some of the examples where there has been successes in support by the government and also pivots.
Thank you, Clara. I agree. I mean, government in Singapore is very supportive of startup ecosystem, very supportive of, they welcome startups from all over the world if they have fantastic ideas and great product to come and build here. As Gary said, Russia for the talent part. So if you're talented, come here and build your product and you get all the support. Thank you so much, Clara. More to come from you later. And I'm going to move to Irina for her insights now. So Irina, what has changed in terms of investments because of the crisis, if at all, in the space tech? Has it gone down, gone up, or?
It's gone up a lot. Yes, so it's gone up, and especially for startups. Startups were struggling quite a bit before, and it's gone up quite a lot. Space is definitely, as I said, a very, very hot topic. And we're seeing now that we have kind of a better regulatory infrastructure to, let's say, talk about things like asteroid mining, right? So we actually have infrastructure laid out for that. There's a lot of opportunities that this unlocks. And I think people are really looking into diversification and seeing kind of how do you get a potential for higher upsides, and space proposes an exponential growth to us. And remember too that space covers a really wide range of topics, right? So it's not just the rockets, which by the way, we must upgrade the way we travel, and that we're seeing a lot of that, so, but also, okay, like as Gary said, how do we get to Mars? How do we get people there? If we're going to go into space exploration and send people there, what do we need? We need life expansion, right? We need ability to have a smart, what is it? How is it? How that really strange movie, The Odyssey?
I don't want a space odyssey.
Right. Oh my goodness, that show. I watched it. I was like, I don't know what to think about it. It's definitely very impactful. But we need to have this build systems built, and there's a lot that's happening in that. Now, one of the things that we are seeing, and that's a challenge that we're seeing, that kind of is disconnecting space industry from venture capitalists, and it is the measurings, right? So your traditional seed round space company would already have a team, would already have product market fit, often already has revenue, and most importantly too, they're raising, $5 to $10 million seed round, right? So that does not work within the traditional template of VCs. And so that's one of the things that we're seeing in a deep tech that I'm seeing, is that there's this disconnection in the language and the thesis, basically, with traditional venture capitalism to the innovations. And so I think that we're going through a big shift and change in that, because when space company talks to investors, they're using language like seed, right? So they're looking for seed round companies, venture capitalists. And when they're talking to a more generalist, VC firm, they're not going to feed into that thesis, because a regular generalist is not going to write them, lead with $5 million check. That's just not in their thesis, right? Because if they're seed round, and so there's that disconnection that we're seeing a lot. But a big push is happening now. I think that's really worth to mention, is that we have a lot of funding that's going into space, and I'm calling it space seed, space A round. So we have space seed and we have space A. We do not have later stages. And so what we're seeing is actually a lot of mergers and acquisitions, right? So kind of the average span to liquidity is 7 years in the space industry, which they're very proud about. However, these are all mergers and acquisitions. And what happens with mergers and acquisitions into big companies is that innovation just dies, right? So you have a thriving startup, bringing something in. When they get bought by bigger company, usually that kind of gets acquired and killed. And so that's a big problem for the space industry. Kind of this later stages pathways is just quite not there yet, because remember, it's only 10 years old, well, 11 years old now, that space is open to a free enterprise, which is amazing things. It's going to change the way we live our lives, but it's still so immature. And I think that's why it's so deliciously just beautiful in the opportunities, right? Because it's so immature, it's so young. The industry itself is like 70 years, right? But as a free enterprise, it's only 10 years. And so we have this big gap in our opportunities.
So, Irina, that brings to the very, very fascinating point you mentioned over that, the kind of funding space, seed and Series A funding. But beyond that, there is no growth stage funding. I mean, how do investors change their mindset? As you rightly said, I mean, there's a lot of potential in the startups, because when you merge into a bigger enterprise, obviously innovation is killed, as you rightly said. So how can we educate other venture capitalists?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that, I really recommend following Space Fund, because it's started by the leaders of the industry. So Rick Tomlinson is kind of the regulatory lead. He is the respectful kind of he's the thought leader, right? He's been having his boots on the ground for over 30 years. So, anybody that's in the space industry knows and respects Rick. And then Megan is managing partner, and so for the last 11 years she's been she's probably seen every business deal there is. And so the reason I'm saying that is because if you're an investor and you go on their website, they have an amazing resource available for you that does great analytics to be able to show you, okay, it's breaking down by categories, and it's basically what we need for the space development. Right. And then it shows you the companies that are there. And then it also shows you categorical opportunities as well. So some of the things are oversubscribed. Launch is oversubscribed. We are overfunding launch right now, and a lot of different areas of space are underfunded. And I think that that's where big opportunities are, because when we say launch is oversubscribed, that means that there are too many companies raising too much money for the space launch, right? And most of them are building rockets, okay, that are burning fuel, which I personally believe is extremely outdated. I love a company, it's called Quantum Machines, for example. Right. They have a patent. They've been able to develop this technology basically that allows you to do some. I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me on that. But basically, some kind of internal spin that allows you to. Now it's a small little set, right? But it basically allows the object to be able to move multidimensional. It's amazing, right? It's amazing what we are able to do with that. And so while there's a lot of research happening on how do we travel, we're still kind of spending a lot of money on these vehicles. And what that means is that a lot of this company, there's just not enough space. We don't need that many launch companies. So, but we are changing the way we're going to do the science. We're changing the way we do a lot of things. For example, zero gravity, right? So like 3D printing of organs in 3D gravity, right? So you print your organs in zero gravity in a low orbit in the station, and then when it needs to be done, you deliver it, because then it kind of stays intact, right? So, and then there's more different opportunities. What's awesome, guys, is that we're getting very close to a point to where for about $3,000, you'll be able to go take a ride to a low orbit. There are a number of companies, but there's a great company that's it's called Zero to G, and that's exactly what they're providing. And I mean, it's amazing what opportunities and what our reality is. We're getting very close to be able to go and take the ride, and right.
So you were advisor to Space Bond. Did you say that?
Space Fund, yes.
Space Fund, yeah. So startups in the space, sector looking for advice. I think, please, Irina is the right person. If you would like to reach out to her, I'm not obviously ending the show like last time Gary thought. I'm just referencing Irina so that startups know where to go and find her. You can find her on our website. I'm gonna give all the details after the show. I mean, just before we finish the show. Thank you, Irina, for those insights. Gary, over to you very smoothly. Do you like to add on to what Irina said, or you would like to say, speak about a different perspective, focusing on the technology?
I'm in this all kinds of tech, right? Because GSD, we handle AI in different parts. But I mean, it's, this, again, to keep it simple, stupid, was $5.9 billion spent last year. And if you look at where it was spent, LEO, satellites, space exploration, tourism, asteroid mining. I mean, it's just the world's opened up. And, part of it's because of the visibility that Elon Musk himself has given to space. I mean, it's renewed interest. And in being able to do it, it's kind of embarrassing that the governments weren't able to do it, but Elon Musk is. What he put up, there are more, I just read a note that said there were more satellites put up in Q1 of 2020 than all of 2019.
Right.
You can imagine that. So and I think it was him, Irina, right, that said that there are enough satellites up there right now, he's going to be able to do the internet without having any land-based systems.
Yep.
Well, think about I wrote an article recently called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True in Forbes called The Democratization of Opportunity. That's exactly what I was talking about. So imagine what that does if you're in a small city in Africa and had never been able to get internet connection. Imagine what that does to level the playing field. So we're in a glorious time where humanity's changing and the playing field is changing too. And space obviously has a lot of impact on it. I think, that I'm more interested in going to, the being able to explore other planets. I was reading about, I talked to this quantum physicist about traveling through wormholes and being able to do space travel in an entirely different way. And, that's where it is because, light year, if you go to the nearest Earth-like planet, it's 150 light years away. So we're going to be dead by the time you get there. So there's going to be other ways that we're going to be able to travel. He's doing a research project, I believe, with MIT on the teleportation of matter. He's a quantum physicist. So we're really exploring some new areas that are very, very interesting. So, I'm excited. And in terms of space, it's sexy, it's interesting, and it's going to happen because think about it. The population of planet Earth is 7.8, 7.9 billion. It has quadrupled in the last 100 years. Look at how much potable water there is, on the planet. We've got challenges with fresh water. We've got challenges with enough space. What's going to happen in another 200 years from now? If it quadrupled in 100 years and it quadruples again and again, we got some serious problem with food. We're going to have to explore. And, God forbid, the asteroid hit the planet during the time of the dinosaurs. What happens if we have those kind of events, cataclysmic events? We had better look outside of our boundaries. And we're started. This is we're just like a child, right? That's just gotten out of diapers and starting to walk to see what's out there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, glorious time. And I'm really happy that Branson and Bezos and Elon Musk have really taken the bull by the horn and given it a lot of visibility and proven they can do it. Now it forces people to jump on board.
Yeah, I mean, what coronavirus did, I mean, we have to, as you rightly said, 200 years down the line, we have to probably find a new home.
Well, I mean, it's, the thing is, and I've had some very interesting conversation with the astronauts, right? About all kinds of different things, and I think that our minds are open to there's other life on other planets for sure, right? I asked a question to one of the astronauts. I said, what's the chance that there are life on other planets? And he said, in Zoom, look at me right in the eyes, 100%. So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I think I got a hint.
Yeah, because I'm really excited, actually.
Yeah, it's really interesting. As long as we're not the cows.
Good point. Great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Sure.
Very futuristic. Very like 200 years down the lane. I'm just imagining myself in a new home. I don't know how does that home look like, but I'm sure it's going to be just like Mother Earth, I guess.
Well, I
But
mean,
yes.
look at Irina or Sonny. I went down
Yes.
through to Irina's point. I'm writing this article. So one of my articles right now is the intersection of AI, gene editing, and genomics. Right, it's one of the areas that I'm really interested in. And then my next article is on living to 150. And we actually did a project like 5 years ago with my MBA students from Skolkova and Stanford on living to 120, I'm sorry. And now 150 is a realistic number because we're looking at like crabs that can live longer. We're looking at nanobots. We're looking at singularity. There's all kinds of different things that have come all at one time. So we're going to be living a lot longer. And it's just, it's so great that our lives are changing and it's nurturing. We're going to be able to explore other civilizations. We're going to be able to see things. And by the way, there are planets that are very similar to Earth, very, very similar to Earth. One of them is about 2.5 times the size of Earth, but they're planets that, on the outside at least, look very similar. So, it's an exciting time for us.
Absolutely. Very exciting. And, I'm getting goosebumps as I speak. Thank you for that insights, Gary. Really amazing and lovely insights. Clara, anything you want to share regarding startups in China or Europe that you're working with that they're planning to venture Singapore as a country for building their startup, or how do you help facilitate and everything else?
Yeah, I think if there are startups who are interested to venture into Singapore or into China, we can basically help with basically finding product market fit and market validation. So, it's providing market access. But of course, if the startup wants to leverage, for instance, manufacturing facilities in, parts of China, or leverage, the Southeast Asia ecosystem using Singapore as a landing pad, of course, they feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss actually what they need, because we only work with scale-ups who have an existing, client base, they have a product and they're ready to scale. So that's one opportunity. If I may ask one question to both Irina and Gary, since this is the first time that we're on a panel together. So from ecosystem growth perspective, so as you know, in Singapore, the Singapore government is the biggest investor in deep tech, right? But deep tech remains a bright spot for promising future, and it's no longer the purview of deep pockets or the scientific community. So being in the US, which is one of the most advanced ecosystems, what trends can we learn from you that can bring us to a major point in change in how deep tech research is pursued in Singapore, and how do we bring that to market?
Great question. Thank you. Who would like to take?
Do you want to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's such a great question. I think that, well, first of all, thank you for saying this. It appears that we are such. I think that one of the things that you guys could do maybe is to encourage the later stage funding for these companies, because they are looking for that, right? So I think that the big opportunities for others come into B+ rounds, right? So if you were saying, okay, how do we attract these companies to come to Singapore to maybe incorporate, or how do we attract them to Singapore? That's your answer for the space industry, right? If you just make space be around kind of a support system, whether through Singapore government, you will pull a lot of projects. Now, of course, remember too is that a lot of these projects are have contracts with U.S. government, so they do have restrictions, and that used to be a model that worked for the most part. So a lot of space companies have contracts, whether with the Air Force, now Space Force, with military, because a lot of development actually happens, manufacturing especially, it happens for the defense. But now for those that are truly free enterprise, that are saying, okay, we're going to stay outside of that ecosystem, that is a great opportunity for you guys to be able to pull them in, right? And often it is just an opportunity for exactly that. And I think that another thing is that one of the opportunities too is in innovations of travel that's different than burning fuel. US is really, really driven right now by burning fuel. So all of the investments that we're seeing is actually in that. And so if there's an opportunity for a competitive advantage in those that, let's say, how Gary said it, allows for quantum travel, right? And for that, you don't need the Kennedy Center, right? And I think that's where being smaller and nimble, okay, allows you to be able to create those opportunities and create those competitive advantages. And one of the other things too is that the biggest problem in the world right now is security. We are actually, now that might be a little bit scary, guys, but there is actually a war going on in space, right, for the satellites. And the space now is becoming more defined in whose area it is and how we look at it. And basically space and satellites are a mess right now. It's absolute mess. And so opportunities in the management and analytics, just maybe it would be AI, to be able to understand how do we think of the data. We're extremely ineffective in the space. And imagine these big bosses basically just going around, and we don't really have control over it. The sensors are several miles away, so there's too much noise. So there's opportunities in that data analysis for the space. And that comes in very, very well. So I think Singapore has Singapore and other countries too, but Singapore especially, Singapore has kind of a mark of quality, right? A brain drain from other countries goes to Singapore. So if you kind of want to leave a nicer lifestyle, right? If you want to be surrounded by more professionals, and I mean that's just my
right.
vision of how it is. You go to Singapore, and so you guys do have advantage from that, right? You just need to not think that space requires land. Space does not require space. Space requires intelligence, and the future is in data analysis. And so anything you guys can do facilitate to that, you can really truly advance the space industry, and thus create the bridge and partner up with those companies that are basically in US and maybe might not be able to come to Singapore. I hope that answered your question.
It has to mine, at least for me. Clara, I agree. Great points, Irina. I mean, you rightly pointed out it's a country of great minds. I mean, obviously US is, but as you rightly said, the brain drain. Yes, that's right. That's the word. Thank you. Clara, okay, Gary, so please like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, a situation, Claire. The other thing is, so again, I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania. And so if it was me, the one thing about Silicon Valley, it's a port to the rest of the world. It's not like a place, I don't even consider it the US. It's really a place where Singaporeans, Chinese, Russians, Ukrainians, I mean, you name it, Africans, Germans, European, all kinds of Europeans. They're just located, and they look for cool technology to invest. It's almost like having a showcase. It's a place where you showcase it all so you can get investment. And of course, China is an enormous market. India is an enormous market. Indonesia is an enormous market that's untapped. So one of the things that I suggest, it's about the money. And if it was me, I mean, Silicon Valley is not going to go away anytime in the near term. It's going to be still a showcase and a place where you can get higher valuations. But I would become part of it. If it was me, I would say, okay, I would partner with those companies that are going to the Valley, invest in those companies because investing is critically important, and then take those companies over to China, to that part of the world, because that's the way. And don't go against the current. When you're swimming and there's a riptide, you swim in parallel to the beach. Swim in parallel. Don't try to go against it. And if you do it that way, you can win. So there's a great opportunity for that, and that's on GSD, which is my company, GSD Venture Studios. That's what we're doing. We're curating the top AI companies using Silicon Valley as a port, and then launching them to the rest of the world from there. And it's about the money. Invest in those companies because there's a lot of money in China. It's just not all over, right? All over, it's misdirected. People don't know where to invest. Get them to directly invest in some of those technologies that are going to help. And that's where you can really win. You can create the next Facebook or Alibaba. I mean, that's the way to do it.
Great. Thank you, Gary. So Clara, is more about partnership, Asia and US coming together. Thank you. I think we are a little ahead of, yeah, it's like 9 p.m. here. Still okay. I really, really enjoyed Clara, unless you have more questions. But Clara, I would really encourage you to come on other panels because really, I really liked your insights coming from the country that we live in, Singapore, and how we can collaborate with startups coming from the US as well. So I'm just like worried like we have to close the show because we are like running short of time. Clara, I would like to ask your feedback about VCTV because you are coming here for the first time, like you were just here for the first time. And we would like to have more of you to understand what's happening in the future, like 6 months down the lane, what's the government doing here? So just want to know your feedback about the show so that, we can take that and work on it if something's missing out.
It's a great experience. Thank you for inviting me. And I like that it's kind of intimate, and we can also interact amongst the panelists. So it's a great format. Thank you very much. And definitely I look forward to returning. If you could have me, I would do that.
Absolutely, great. Thank you so much, Clara, for those words. I love to have you on my panel as well. Okay, Gary, Irina, I know that obviously we are VCTV family, but still as a family member, I have to ask the other family member, what do they think about this family? So Irina, over to you.
Oh goodness, most families probably you don't want to open that subject, right? But we are functional and loving families, so we can share those things. I love the CTV. It just brings me that has been missing from my life, which is connecting with people all over the world, making sure that we're continuing having the important discussions, learning. Every single time I learn, I take notes all the time, and it just settles in. Yeah. And I mean, and that even comes, look, Gary, even every single time you say something, there's something new, there's always something new. We have so much information that's happening around us, and it's just so wonderful to be able to connect from home or from wherever we are, from ranches, from beaches, from mountains, wherever you are, and make sure that we continue in pushing the boundaries, right? We're continuing the conversations, we're building, we're partnering. And the world, I think, needs us more than ever now. And I do know that a lot of people get hope from that, right? Because if you're sitting at home and if you're an entrepreneur and if you're an investor and if you're not participating in things like that, it can be isolating, and it might seem that things stopped. And in reality, everything is accelerating and moving faster and faster and faster. And we are becoming more globally connected than ever. And we are together building these structures. We're rebuilding and we're reimagining the way the systems work. And in order for us to be able to implement these reimagined systems, we must work together. And that's what we're doing here.
That's what we're doing. We're intellectually connected families. We're not like the two typical families. Sorry, I don't want to bring that up as well, Irina. So rightly said. I mean, so it might seem like because of the pandemic, travels have stopped. I mean, you might think you are isolated, but not. As Irina rightly said, we are accelerating even much more faster because of the reach due to the internet. Thank you so much. Gary, again, your feedback about the VCTV family and your family.
Well, I look forward to it every day. So it's great to be here. And it's really helped me with the ideas for the articles and the articles bring in, top pharmaceutical companies, and it's like a big circle. And being on the cutting edge like this and being able to share information really helps out because it helps you define the future. I mean, the reason you used to go to events before is because you would go down through and get ideas. Now you get those ideas a lot faster. I mean, today I'll be on 3 different events just
Right.
today. And then tomorrow I got my shows and so we're consistently getting updated, and it just helps. It helps me define the kind of companies I'm interested in bringing into GSD. And it also gets the connections like you can't imagine. Some of the richest people in the world have been on these kind of events, and many people don't even recognize. Irina does, but sometimes you don't recognize who they are unless you know, right? You start to dig. It's like, oh, they're from, I don't want to say the family, but it's one of the richest families in the world, right? And they're on the show, and it's great. I love it. It's good for connections, and it's going to be like this for some time. So you either buy in. There's going to be 2 classes of people, Sonny, the people that understand and know that have bought into this digitally transformed model, or the people that are outside and are outside of the parameters and don't get the investment opportunities, don't get a chance to grow their companies, because there aren't any other choices right now. You either buy in or you're out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you so much, Irina. And thank you so much, Clara, to be on our show today. And final words as we close the show is that startups and founders, if you're looking to reach out to Clara, Gary, or Irina, you can always do that by going to our website, www.latoken.com/profiles. And you can see their profiles over there. And you have to click on their picture. You can see Irina there. Click and click on pitch, and there you go. You get direct connection to Irina. So that's the thing about this platform, where we connect directly to this investors. So I think, as Irina rightly said, and Gary rightly said, keep building, keep pitching, keep on building, keep on expanding on your network. Okay, today you know Gary, tomorrow you know Gary's network. Tomorrow he's obviously hosting shows, he's speaking at other events, and he can give you that connection of his as well. So please don't stop pitching. Please don't stop building. So that's my closing remarks for the show. Thank you so much. Again, for investors, for those who are looking to network with other like-minded investors from all over the world, like we have Gary and Irina from the US, you have Clara from Singapore. So tomorrow we have somebody else from Europe as well. So if you're looking to build your own intimate investor community, this is the right platform for you to come and speak and share your ideas and insights with the founders, with the startups, and our global audience. Having said that, I have to close the show now. And all I have to say, please stay connected, and let's all stay safe as well, because we'd like to come back and talk to each other, being a little family. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all again on another panel. Till then, take care and good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.